Our top story: China has plans to raise its defense spending by around 7% this year. That was announced by Fu Ying, the spokeswoman for the National People's Congress. She said the move is aimed at boosting the country's capability to guard against, quote, outside meddling in disputes over Beijing's territorial claims in Asian waters. She said China favors a peaceful settlement of disputes through dialogue and consultation, but at the same time should safeguard its sovereignty, interests and rights. Beijing's claims in the South China Sea and East China Sea have stirred alarm in the region and prompted criticism from Washington. To get more insight into the story, we go live to Ontario, Canada, to talk to Jason Unruhe, independent media personality and political commentator. Mr. Unruhe, thank you so much for being with us. Do you think China's increase of its defense spending is justified at this moment?
Oh, there can be no doubt that the U.S. is behind the meddling that Fu was referring to. U.S. allies in the region have already sided with the U.S. when it comes to a possible ownership of the resources of the South China Sea. China certainly has a strong interest in modernizing its armed forces. In general, it's necessary to keep your armed forces in general up to date. But we must also keep in mind that U.S. President Donald Trump has declared his intentions to go on a massive military spending campaign. He feels that the U.S. military has somehow been gutted by the former President Obama. Such a claim is frankly absurd. Under Obama, existing and new military operations were carried out against various countries, particularly in the Middle East. There has been no slowdown in U.S. imperialism during the past 8 years, quite the opposite. China has every right to build up its defenses in order to protect itself from foreign aggression. The U.S. is simply being hypocritical when it attempts to claim otherwise. We're looking at a buildup of military power on both sides as they contend for the oil resources found in the South China Sea. Both China and the U.S. are interested in grabbing up the energy resources. It was a 2013 study by the U.S. Energy Information Administration that estimated the total oil reserves to be 11 billion barrels in the region. And as a result, in 2014, China began to drill for oil in the waters disputed with Vietnam. This is a race to see who can capture the oil as other places around the world start running out in a few decades. Oil will always be a major point of interest for foreign policy, as it is absolutely necessary for any economy.
Mr. Unruhe, do you think that a rise in China's defense budget and defense spending will give rise to increase the chances of a military rivalry in the sensitive South Asia region?
I think it most certainly would, but there's already an arms race going on. It would be more fair to say that China is reacting to it. As I said, the oil in the region is what's under contest right now. And it's not China so much that started the race. It was the United States. Both sides are going to escalate both their abilities to keep a hold over the area. So I would say to merely say that China is causing it is simply incorrect. I would say that it's more accurate that China is reacting to the ongoing situation.
And how do you think the U.S. Would react to the news that China is boosting its defense spending?
I think the U.S. is definitely going to increase its defense spending as well. Donald Trump has made that very clear that he's going for an estimated 10% increase to the U.S. military budget in general. This is very likely the beginning of an arms race within the region. The U.S. simply just won't allow China to beat them to such an important resource when they have so many of their own allies right next door to it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Unruhe, for talking to Press TV. Jason Unruhe, independent media personality and political commentator, joining us live out of Ontario, Canada.